We want to go now to Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger, who is joining us now to talk about the weather, the response, and really what the days ahead will look like. Governor Spanberger, thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you so very much for having me on.
All right, give us an update in terms of where we stand in the state in terms of the response. How are we doing?
Well, so far, we have seen just extraordinary work from all of our emergency management related agencies. Virginia Department of Emergency Management has been doing just tremendous work in coordinating everything from what VDOT is doing. VDOT, of course, is working 24-hour shifts right now. They are working to clear roads. They pre-treated roads well in advance of the storm beginning, and they will continue to work around the clock, trying to ensure that roads are passable, principally for first responders and ultimately for electrical crews that may be trying to reconnect down power lines. Virginia State Police have been doing important work, certainly before the snow and freezing rain and sleet began, clearing roads that were disabled, clearing cars, that were disabled along the road so that VDOT trucks and plows could get through. And now they've been responding both to accidents and to vehicles that are disabled along our roadways. Importantly, many Virginians have heeded the warnings and have stayed off the roads. That has been incredibly important. And I ask that all Virginians please continue to stay off the roads through Monday morning. We are expecting temperatures to drop. Those roads will freeze. The danger continues to persist. And in the coming days, then our worry shifts more and more towards potential power outages as the temperatures continue to be low, the winds will pick up, and then we run the risk of seeing trees coming down and bringing power lines with them.
Governor, is there any spot at this point that you and your team have indicated as sort of a trouble spot?
Right now, what we are seeing is we are ready for everything. And certainly, as we may see increased power outages and the very real concern that, in fact, it's not just Virginia that's impacted, it's the entire region. We know that will mean not only will there be Virginians facing power outages, but it will likely take longer to restore power. We are in constant communication with our energy providers across the Commonwealth. They are heavily engaged with the Virginia Department of Emergency Management, and the coordination continues. But the reality of the storm is that it has hit all of Virginia. And what that means is that all of Virginia needs to have resources available, whether it's state police on our roadways or whether it is VDOT plows and personnel clearing roads. And that just makes the response so much harder because we can't surge resources because they are needed everywhere. So far, we have both the state declaration of emergency that I declared on Thursday. We also received federal declaration after our request went out Friday. And that's important. We now have some FEMA personnel on the ground assisting us here in the Commonwealth. And we also have the ability to leverage federal resources as it relates to potential. What we requested was generators for use in warming stations as we continue to build out warming stations across the Commonwealth, and food supplies for those who might be headed to warming stations. But the challenges are real, but the coordination and cooperation has just been extraordinary. And so I am so grateful to Virginians who've heeded the warnings, stayed off the roads. I'm so grateful to Virginia National Guard and the state troopers and our VDOT employees and contractors who are doing incredible work trying to address the impacts of this storm as quickly and as fulsomely as we possibly can. But we will continue to see real challenges over the coming days, in part because of the extreme temperatures that will continue to be headed towards Virginia. And so that just means that those roadways will remain frozen, and it will just be that much harder to ensure their safety into the future. So we're asking for certainly people to stay off the roads and to recognize that it's an all hands on deck moment for the state, and we're responding as quickly and as comprehensively as we possibly can.
Governor, before you came into office, you had an opportunity to sort of sit in a panel to go through an exercise for these weather conditions. Is the plan that you and your team rehearsed, is it playing out the way that you anticipated?
Importantly, yes, and certainly knowing as that I was transitioning in and going to be sworn in as governor, I certainly know that it's the emergency circumstances, the things that you can't fully prepare for, that are the most vital. My background in national security is one that makes me really inclined towards tabletop exercises and trying to understand all the things that could go wrong. And so last month we did, in addition to multiple briefings with Virginia Department of Emergency Management, a full tabletop exercise where we brought in, state agencies from across the state. It was a really well-organized exercise. Basically, if we were to get rain and freezing rain and temperatures drop, right, all of the confluence of difficult things, how would the state respond? And so importantly, having just been through that practice last month, I will say that that exercise put us through sort of one of the worst case scenarios in terms of snow and temperatures and wind. And the one difference, importantly, between the tabletop exercise to now is that now the entirety of the state is impacted. That's actually a complicating factor that we hadn't previously planned for. And so this is where I'll just say the planning that occurs in advance of the storms you never want to see is so extraordinarily essential. And we were able to react very quickly, declaring the state of emergency, having everything ready to request the federal declaration, which we ultimately received, and to be ready to continue ensuring that we're communicating with Virginians about the continued risks and making sure that people know. I've talked about the potential for us to continue to see major power outages across the Commonwealth. In addition to that, relatedly, many will be employing camping stoves or generators to try and keep their homes warm or try and cook a meal. Please use precaution with generators, with cooking stoves, with any of those instruments, because we are already seeing increased numbers of individuals at our emergency departments with carbon monoxide exposure. If you're using a generator, please make sure it's outside, not in the basement, not in the garage, not in your home. And if you're cooking on a camping stove, use it outside. It is safer. Those toxic fumes, they can make you sick and they can be deadly, both for people and pets. So please continue to exercise caution, and we'll continue to push out information about roadway conditions, about warming stations, and about resources in the coming days.
Governor, last question before we let you go. You talked about the importance of resources, given that this storm is impacting the entire state. Obviously, that requires federal participation as well. Did you have any concern at all leading up to this storm that you might get some pushback from the Trump administration in your request for those resources, given what we've seen to take place in other states like Maryland, for instance?
Certainly, we have seen federal aid become politicized in the past. Knowing the size and scope of this storm, we put together a package, and it was principally Virginia Department of Emergency Management put together a package explaining that this is going to be a catastrophic storm by Virginia standards. We are going to be monumentally impacted. And frankly, Virginia, as a major thoroughfare and hub of goods and of not just Virginia's economy, but the entire sort of eastern seaboard, we need to be able to respond quickly. And so the request that we put in was for resources that exist, such as generator support and food supplies, and that request was granted. And importantly, these are things that Virginians, by virtue of our federal tax dollars, endeavor to have at the ready for Virginia when we face an emergency, or for any other state. And so importantly, I was pleased to see that was approved quickly. And we're continuing to identify if into the future we might need to request any additional federal supports. And my expectation of the federal government would be that, recognizing that all of these supplies and this infrastructure is in fact funded by taxpayers across the country, that when we need it, it will be granted. And that's the purpose of those resources. And so glad to see it. The first stage per our request was granted, and hopefully we won't need to request any more. But if we do, it will be because of the serious nature of this storm and the impact on our Commonwealth.
Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so very much.
All right, take care.